Hey everybody, this is Conrad from 8Dio, and today I am joined by the lovely Francesca. So this is a major overhaul of our Francesca library from the Forgotten Voices series. And as you just heard, it is a library full of beautiful solo vocal phrases. And the way I figured we'd structure today's video is I've written a little piece with Francesca, and then I've broken this song into a few different sections, and we're going to listen to each section without Francesca, and then I will put Francesca back in, and we can hear just how much she brings to this track. So let's get started. So right off here on section 1, let's mute her, and let me go ahead and hit play. So as you can hear, it's a little quiet, it's a bit more ambient. We have the synth drone, we have little bits of percussion like bells and all of that. But in my opinion, it still sounds, well, dead. And we need to bring some life to it. There's not a whole lot going on for it right now. And that is where Francesca just shines. So let's bring her in. I have the Francesca Songs patch being used right now. And if I open that up in the piano roll, you will see that for this first part, I am just holding down one key. And you'll just hear how one single phrase just makes this pop. Hallelujah, we have given this track life. Now you also notice I have a track here that is Francesca Songs A-B, which I'll get into a little bit later. You'll also notice here the other patch, Francesca Ambience, started to come in. I'll go ahead and solo that. And let's go ahead and take a listen. Now, if you look in the piano roll, you can see that it's just holding one chord. And usually when you do drones, it sounds rather static, but Francesca made sure that her drones were not static. You can feel the movement in the chord, and that adds a lot of character to it. And I know I'm bleeding into section 2 right now, but I wanted to point that out because that sound is a big part of section 2. So let's go ahead and jump to section 2. We'll mute Francesca again. And you know what? I'll add section 3 with it, because they're quite similar. Let me just go ahead and mute this so it doesn't bleed through. And let's take a listen. So without Francesca. Okay, so we've got a little more going on than we did in section 1. We've added this big manipulated drum sound. We've added a sort of gritty synth sound. But we can take it up a notch with Francesca. So let's go through the tracks top to bottom. The first one I did was the Francesca chants. And the particular chant I chose in the beginning is a lower, more guttural sound. And I felt that that really worked with the new low drum that I brought in, and it also works with the sort of gritty synth sound. And then I gave her just a soft melody on top. mainly because this early in the track I don't want any phrases that are too high-pitched or too loud. The next track I used is the Francesca effects. And so the articulation I use for this is called breaths, though it will change, and I'll talk about that when it happens. And I always like using breaths for rhythm. You'll notice in the piano roll it's hitting on every half note. And I just like that they don't have such a heavy attack. It's not a heavy transient, but it adds this nice little character to each attack, sort of like a soft release. But there is one that kind of stands out when I do this. Your ears did not deceive you. That is, in fact, a burp. We sampled quite a variety of fun things. And the reason I chose the burp isn't because it's funny, but because it actually works. I just had that low guttural chant. And the burp keeps that sort of throaty quality, but then if I also solo the big manipulated drum I have down here, you'll hear that it sort of matches the attack. It's just more characteristic when I attach it to that attack. And it also fits the sound of the gritty synth a little bit more. But the biggest part of Francesca right here is the ambience patch again. So I'll play it with the ambience on. I'll play just a little bit of it. I'll go back and play it without, and you will hear what a difference it makes. So this is with it. And now if I take it out, I mean, that is such a huge difference. That ambience patch, it just filled up every little gap and hole that was in this section. I mean, it's one of those things when you turn it off, it's just so drastic. And it just keeps this ethereal quality throughout this whole section, or these two sections. And once again, the movement in that drone, even though I'm just holding down the note, the movement in it just keeps it from being boring. So let's move on to the next section, because it actually gets quite interesting. Let me just mute a few tracks so they don't bleed over. So let's mute Francesca again, and let's hit play. So things are getting a bit more interesting here. In the previous sections, I was using the breaths in the effects patch to sort of keep the rhythm going, because the percussion was a bit more bare. It wasn't as steady. Whereas here we have a very steady drum loop going on. But perhaps more interesting is the male chants going on that are also keeping rhythm. Now, I love the character that the male chants are bringing, but I feel like they need a leader, so to say. And this is once again where we can bring in Francesca, and just choosing one song from the Francesca songs patch, it just solves everything that I'm looking for. You can hear the way she just starts to come through the chanting and all the drums, and she just progresses this forward. You can hear again how the ambience is just filling up all the gaps. mean, it just works beautiful in just a few little notes. I mean, no time at all to get this thing alive. And now let's go to section 5. So as usual, we'll mute Francesca. So we don't have to listen to the whole thing there. Let's bring Francesca back in. As you can hear, it's once again getting a bit quieter again. We're sort of going backwards in the feel and tempo. And so let's listen again with Francesca. Now this is where we're going to get into a bit more of the technical side of things. This is where I'm first going to talk about the A-B songs. So what I've done, if you look over here in Contact, I've used our little T-Link button here to actually choose 2 articulations at the same time. Or articulations, you could also consider them sets of phrases. And I have chosen Power 1 and Lonely, and I have set Power 1 to be the A articulation, Lonely to be the B articulation. Now when you set them as A and B, you can use these little panels here to change the tone of each one independently, but the way I am using it is with this A-B mix. If I were to open the piano roll and go to my modulation data, you'll notice I have this slight ramp up as the phrase goes on. Now when I start the phrase, you will see that the mix knob is all the way at A, and as the modulation goes up, you'll see it move towards B. Now what this is doing is it's taking the B phrase, the lonely phrase, and as the modulation ramps up, the volume starts to transition towards that. So go ahead and watch the A-B mix knob and take a listen. You can hear that second melody starting to come up underneath it. And this is really powerful because now I can blend between the powerful phrase and a lonely phrase, or you can blend between 2 powerful phrases, or dark, gloomy, whatever, so you can start changing the character in the middle of the phrase. The next one I want to go over real quick is, let's go up to the chants here. And you'll notice, and this is on a lot of the patches, these little key switches up here. So let's say you really like a phrase, but it doesn't fit the key of the song you're working in. Well, that's fine because I can use these little key switches up here as transposition. So maybe that's a little too high for the key I'm working in. I'll take it down a little bit. And perhaps that's the one that works. Now the last little technical thing I want to go over is if I come up here to these Francesca songs, you'll notice it has TM Pro next to the name. This is an extra series of patches we have, and what they do is they respond to the pitch bend. So if I'm writing something and I say, well, I like that phrase, but it's a little too fast. Well, I can change the pitch bend. I can turn it down to go slower or turn it up to go faster. So here it is neutral. I'll go, ooh, I need that slower. Turn the pitch bend down. Maybe that was too slow, so I'll bring it up a little bit. Or I might have the opposite problem. I need to speed it up. I'm taking it really to the extremes here. So let's go all the way up. And what's really cool is we can change this in the middle of the phrase performance. So say, oh, the high note hit there, but then the next high note or the next super low note, I need that to hit here. So maybe in the beginning it needs to be faster, and towards the end it needs to get slower. So I'll just hit a phrase and I'll change it real time. So this is great because you are no longer restricted to the key or the time. So really powerful. You can use any of these wonderful phrases no matter what you're writing. So let's keep going on. Let's go to the final section here. So far, I've been using Francesca in a bit more of a quiet piece, but I want to prove that she can indeed handle the big stuff. So we'll go ahead and mute her. So you can hear we now have that big, heavy, low brass and low strings. We have the spiccato strings going on. We brought our synth back in. We have some big, bombastic drums going on. So what is it missing? It's missing a beautiful, soaring melody above. And let's bring Francesca in for that. You'll hear how the fact that this is now a bigger, louder section does not stop her. So you can hear with pretty much minimal effort, I barely had to do anything when writing in Francesca, just how diverse of a singer you're getting. Just really talented, so easy to use. It really is just almost a press a key and it works. So head on over to 8dio.com. Be sure to check out the new Francesca library. And let's listen to the piece all the way through. So it's time for me to shut up and for Francesca to take the lead.